Good morning, students. In the last class, we have discussed about tetanus. Let me brief it. Then we will go to the today topic, that is diphtheria. In the last class, we have discussed about the spore-forming organism Clostridium difficile. The spores are generated from the soil, infect the human beings through wounds, cuts, road traffic accidents, burns, etc. Once it enters into the body, it releases the toxin. The toxin predominantly affect the nervous system and other systems also. In the nervous system, it affects anti-neuron cells and presynaptic terminal, where it inhibits the GABA and glycine. By inhibiting these two, the uninhibiting or uncontrolled activity of the alpha neurons will get more, and there is a continuous contraction of agonist and antagonist nerve that leads to spasms. That is a continuous intermittent spasm is a characteristic feature of tetanus. The tetanus is a generalized tetanus, involves the whole body, and a focal, that is segmental tetanus, most of the time cephalic or other parts of the body. Only one part of the body is involved. And the diagnosis by total clinical entity. Tetanus is a total clinical entity which is diagnosed. Coming to the treatment, the tetanus has got three, in the treatment has got two parts. One is role of antibiotic and antitoxin. The antibiotics that are used are penicillin and metronidazole and the human immunoglobulins for to neutralize the toxin. And another very important is immunization. That is active immunization with tetanus toxoid along with the diphtheria and along with pertussis. And the complications are, main complication is as a part of disease or during spasms, the patient will have lung involvement through laryngeal spasm or aspiration pneumonia. So we have to predict the laryngeal spasm earlier and better to indicate the patient, or if necessary, we have to go for tracheostomy. So that is in brief about tetanus. Coming to the today's diphtheria, topic is diphtheria. Coming to the history, so these are the 8% who has involved in diagnosis, cultivation, so culturing and isolation of the organism. So the first man who has known about a clinical entity, clinical features about the diphtheria is Retinue. Later, the Klebs and together Loeffler as cultivated, that is cultured and observed and described the disease. That's why the diphtheria is also called as Klebs-Loeffler's bacilli. And Roques Edson has discovered the exotoxin. Later, in 1890, the Von Behring has given about morphology, molecular weight about toxin, antitoxin. And the Roques and Edson has given a detailed description of exotoxin, which is mainly causes clinical features of a diphtheria. So coming to the morphology. Here the term Corynebacteria diphtheria has derived from the Greek. Koryne means club-shaped. You can see the organism here, the greenish, where it is a club-shaped organism. So that's why it is called Koryne. In Greek, it means club. And diphtheria means, in Greek, diphtherios means leathery. So the characteristic pathognomic feature of the Corynebacterium diphtheria is formation of a membrane, a leathery membrane in the oropharynx. That's why the name Corynebacteria diphtheria. That means a club-shaped bacteria which is causing a pseudomembrane. Next is coming to the morphology. The total morphology as described this in this picture. Here you can see the color is methylene blue, where there is some black granules at ends of the bacilli. They are called polar bodies, and they contain metachromatic granules. And if you see clearly the slide where the there is a complete separation of bacilli, some are completely separated and some are in a page, some are in a partial L-shaped manner, or some are in a V-shaped manner. That's why it is also called, the pattern is called V and L pattern appearance of bacilli and smear. And another terminology that comes in morphology is Chinese letter pattern. So they arranged, when you examine in a smear, they arranged in a pairs or in a clusters or in a palisade matter, which appears there the morphology as a Chinese letter pattern or cuneiform pattern. Coming to the diphtheria toxin. So it is a protein which can be crystallized. So the molecular weight is 62,000 and it contains the two fragments A and B, and the toxigenicity of toxin is because of cryonephasis. Coming to the toxin. The toxin production by diphtheria are different from different species. There are the three species which produces, some species produces abundantly, that is in a large amount. Some produces very small amount, that is very pure amount. But qualitatively, all are effective. All are effective. Toxicity is almost, the toxic effect of toxin is for all the species is almost equal. 85 to 90% they are equal. Next is the molecular weight is 62,000, where it contains the two fragments A and B. The A fragment is very, very important for its pathogenicity. B helps in for binding the cell wall, and A fragment contains the granules, that is enzymatic activity of the toxin depends on the fragment A, where when the toxin is released in the throat or in the wound, it is in a state of inactive state. It gets activated by proteases that are present in the cell wall of a normal person, where the fragments get liberated, lies, and the toxins is liberated. The B fragment helps in binding the. Next is toxide. When the toxin is get inactivated by a formalin or acid pH or continued inoculation in a formalin, they will get into a form toxide, where it lacks or loses its toxicity and does not loses it onto the immunogenicity. That is toxic. Another very, very important is the toxigenicity depends on presence of and bacteria and then toxin. Chorinophases. What is this chorinophases means? These are genetically determined structures which are present in the bacterial toxin, which determines the production of the toxin. So, if by presence or by adding these phases, we can convert a less toxic phases into more toxic phases in research or in laboratory research. So this is the picture. So go through the phases. There are 5 phases. One is, first is diphtheria toxin. The toxin receptors get activated. That is A and B, A fragment and B fragment. The membrane receptor mediated endocytosis. They'll get into the cell by endocytosis. The diphtheria toxin receptor binding dominant B binds the host membrane. Already I said the B is for binding. The membrane-bound toxin A and B enters the endocytosis by endocytosis. The catalytic unit A is cleaved but held to B subunit by disulfide bonds, but they won't get separate. Both A and B get be together until in the initial stage. The endosomal vesicles acidifies and the disulfide bonds are reduced. In the third phase, this is see here, in the third stage, the B and A get separate. In the fourth stage, the membrane domain facilitates passage of the catalytic A peptide through the vesicle membrane. That is what I said. The proteases which are present in the cell will get cleaved, helps in liberation, release of A fragment from the toxin. So, in the presence of NAD, NAD D. This A fragment will halt or stops the elongation of cell in the presence. That is, the catalytic A-domin ADA ribosomes elongate factor. That means the EF2 factor, EF2 factor. In the presence of NAD, the A fragment of toxin will block the elongation factor that goes in the normal cycle and causes the cell death. So coming to the clinical, what is infective material? What is the clinical features? The infective material is nasopharyngeal secretions, discharge from the skin lesions or cutaneous lesions, and contaminated fomites and infected dust. Sometimes it also transmits rarely through hands contaminated with materials. And this is, you should keep in mind, the more pathognomic feature is the primary lesion is in the upper respiratory tract. It can also involve nasopharynx, oropharynx, lungs, and other systems also, where they lead to, at the site lead to plasmodic fibrin network formation with the bacteria. That is finally lead to a membrane formation, that is pseudomembrane formation, that is adherent to underlying tissue, nose, pharynx, larynx, tonsil. That means throughout the oral cavity, or sometimes, especially in children, it may extend into the below the larynx. That means it can also involve the lower respiratory system where it blocks the airways and causes death. So once you try to remove the membrane which is adherent to the pharyngeal wall, that is scraping, there is a chances of bleeding. From this site, the toxin is liberated and it is absorbed into the body. The toxin affects other structures, that is heart, kidney, liver, spleen, muscle, peripheral nerves, and adrenals. It mainly involves central nervous system and heart. So clinical features, the incubation period is 2 to 5 days. As low as 1 day also. Onset with the fever, malaise, sore throat, and headache and weakness. And the diphtheria is divided into nasal diphtheria, tonsillar diphtheria, laryngeal diphtheria, and another form is cutaneous diphtheria. In the nasal diphtheria, the patient will have some watery discharge, pseudosanguinary discharge from the nose. In the tonsillar diphtheria, the patient will have throat pain and submandibular lymph nodes, dysphagia, sore throat, and cervical lymph node enlargement. So unilateral or bilateral or diffuse cervical lymph node enlargement gives a characteristic feature of bull's neck deformity. So laryngeal diphtheria, once there is a laryngeal involvement, there will be a hoarseness of the voice, and there is inspiratory stridor, there will be a cough, and there is a respiratory distress. This is bull's neck deformity or bull's neck appearance, what I said. The bull's neck appearance is because of regional nodes enlargement, bilateral or unilateral also. So this is a typical pharyngeal membrane you can see on the picture. So complications. What are the complications means? It primarily involves the respiratory system, and other systems that get involved is CVS, neurological, respiratory, renal. So coming to the respiratory system, in the respiratory system, the dangerous complication is laryngeal diphtheria, where the membrane will block the air entry and the patient will have asphyxia, cyanosis, and sometimes death. Once the membrane has extended into the lower respiratory, below the larynx, in the lower respiratory, it causes multiple airways obstruction and causes death, and the patient may need ventilator also. Next, coming to the CVS, it typically occurs in the first week or in the second week, end of the second week means it causes myocarditis, arrhythmias, atrial fibrillation, conduction blocks, and congestive cardiac failure. In the kidney, it causes renal failure, proteinuria, and tubular necrosis. That's neurological. The neurological usually appears in the second week, where the patient will have palatal palsy with a nasal regurgitation and ocular palsy with a deviation of eye and loss of accommodation reflex, that is preservation of light reflex with a blurring of vision. and the patient will have a generalized polyneuritis in the third to sixth week. So there is involvement of lower cranial nerves also, and there is involvement of polyneuritis manifestation in the motor deficit of proximal muscle. So what is that mean? The polyneuritis means it mimics the GBC, or it causes a descending paralysis. It is one type of demyelinating neuropathy. Polyneuritis. Polyneuropathy. That means all the nerves will be involved, and the patient will have quadriparesis. He may present with a quadriparesis. With a previous history of 1 week before or 2 weeks before, with a history of respiratory tract infection, or with some membrane, or with a cutaneous manifestation of diphtheria. The patient may have paresis to paralysis. And once there is a paresis, the patient induced reflexes, increased tone. Okay. Next is cutaneous diphtheria. A painful blisters like skin lesions which break down to form an ulcer. That means it causes an ulcer with a membrane. So coming to the diagnosis, there are in vitro, in vivo diagnostic methods, but for all it is very simple: clear examination, culture, and demonstration of estimation of antitoxin levels. These are the three things you have to keep in mind. One is smear examination, that is methylene blue, low flux, and there is a number of smear materials, low flux, Wanders, Kaiser's. These are the different scientists where you can do. But method is methylene blue examination, that is a simple method. And cultures that are available are blood agar, telluride agar, and low flux agars. These are the methods that is available in the cultures. And another is estimation of antitoxin. If the patient has got 0.01 in toxin in the blood, then the susceptibility to infection is less. Coming to the treatment. The treatment is divided into, again, as such a tetanus, it is divided into two parts: antibiotics and another is immunization and role of antitoxin. So coming to the antibiotics. What is the role of antibiotics and what the antibiotics will do? Prevention of the further toxic production, one, and reduction of transmission and control of local infection. These are the goals of antibiotics. So the drug of choice is penicillin. If they are sensitive, you can go for azithromycin. And another penicillin will be amoxicillin 500 mg, 8 hourly, and azithromycin orally by injection for 14 days. Either penicillin or azithromycin for 14 days. So I am repeating one point here. What is the best control? Initially, we will treat with the high doses. Later, we will come to a low doses. Initially, we will treat with the higher doses until the patient complains that he can breathe or he can swallow comfortably. It means when you treat early, the size of the membrane decreases and the patient will have comfort breathe and he can swallow easily. That is the indication for reduction of a dose. But the total duration is 14 days. There is no change in total duration treatment. So, for how many days you have to continue? And after 14 days, take a throat swab and a culture. After 14 days, if throat swab is positive, again you have to treat the patient for next coming 14 days. If the culture is positive, again you have to. If the patient is asymptomatic also, until the culture, at least 2 cultures, if they are negative, then you can stop the treatment. Most of the times, by end of the 14 days, the cultures will be negative. When negative, the antibiotic or erythromycin both can be used. Next is diphtheria antitoxin, which is available. The doses are different. In a mild cases, it can go to 4,000 to 8,000. In cases, it will go to 16,000 to 40,000 units. But it is equal prepared. You should be ready to face the lethal complications, that is anaphylactic reactions and serum sickness. So the specialty here, you can see the serum sickness after 7 to 14 days after injection. So coming to the immunization. So combined vaccines, already I have discussed about the combined vaccines when I discussed about it. That is DPT, DTP, DTPA, DT. And in the previous days, they used to get single vaccines like formal toxin, APT, aluminum precipitated toxide, and purified toxide aluminum precipitate, and along with PTAH hydroxide and toxide antitoxin flocculation. So these are the available. But nowadays, the simple is we are giving DTP AP, small AP. So diphtheria, tetanus, and acellular pertussis is given in a scheduled manner. So this is the immunization schedule: 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks. Later, 16 to 18 months booster dose, and another booster dose 5 years. Next, prevention is when you suspect a case, isolate, take a precautions, care of the contacts, kept up to observation for 7 days, no role of prophylactic antibiotics, and active immunization for prevention, and replace. We have now replaced the TT with the TD. This is very important differential diagnosis. So nasal diphtheria, if suddenly has caused a difficulty in swallowing, it can be occurring foreign body in the nose, rhinorrhea, where the nasal block, and laryngeal diphtheria through that is acute epiglottitis, laryngotracheobronchitis, and peritonsillar abscess, where it may mimic the bull's neck deformity, ectopharyngeal abscesses, and CNS, what I said is GBS, and tetanus. So thank you. So today's topic is diphtheria. The take home message is so it is a organism, non-sporing, non-motile organism, which when stained with the methylene blue shows some chromatin at one end that is called polar bodies. That is called polar bodies. They are arranged in a V or L pattern, or Chinese letter pattern, or cuneiform pattern. So it is also called as Klebsiella bacillus. Those are they have given discovered the bacteria, and it affects all systems of the body. Predominantly, it affects the respiratory system and nervous system, and it produces the toxin. The toxin has got two fragments, A and B. B is for binding, A for enzymatic activity, where it inhibits cell prolongation by inhibiting EF2, elongation factor 2, in the presence of ND, NAD. Next, coming to the clinical features, it affects all the system. The pathognomic characteristic feature is presence of grayish white adherent membrane in the pharynx, oral cavity, nasopharynx, oropharynx, larynx, sometimes children into the lower respiratory tract. It also involves nervous system, where it causes descending type of nerve palsy, along with involvement of lower cranial nerves. It also involves renal system and also involves cardiac system, where it causes complete heart blocks and arrhythmias. Coming to the treatment, the treatment, coming to the diagnosis by smear examination and culture of the organism in culture media, 3 culture media. Okay, next is treatment: antibiotics, antitoxin, immunization. Antibiotic, the 2 antibiotics that is used is penicillin group and erythromycin, and antitoxin is less used because it has got more anaphylactic reactions. Next is prevention by immunization, that is said this will give the tetanus diphtheria toxin along with tetanus and pertussis, that is absorbed diphtheria toxin, that is aluminum absorbed aluminum plate agar. There will be a plate where the formalin, the bacilli will be kept in the formalin for 3 to 6 weeks. Later, that aluminum coated agar plate will be there, where they will keep the toxin, and later they manufacture a vaccine. That is absorbed diphtheria and toxoid. Next, prevention. Those who are carriers, those who are contacts, we have to bring them and take a smear, throat swab, and send the culture. If they are negative, go for a. If they are positive, treat for 14 days. Okay. Next is differential diagnosis. In the differential diagnosis, the main differential diagnosis, central nervous system, the clinical picture may mimic the GB syndrome. Sometimes the membrane may block the pharynx or larynx, which causes a foreign body sensation, foreign body obstruction. So this is a differential diagnosis. You have to keep in nasal diphtheria may mimic foreign body in the nose, rhinorrhea because of nasal block, pharyngeal diphtheria, the acute epiglottis cause edema of the larynx and causes sudden spasm, and the patient may lead into respiratory failure. So thank you.